My parents divorced when I, a teen female, was a tween. At first, everything went okay for the first 4 years. He had 50-50 custody with me and my siblings, 20 male, 18 male, until he met Kira, who has 2 kids, Darren, teen male, and Vicky, young teen female. It started small, like skipping minor events or weekends with me to spend time with them. It got worse over the years. For example, he skipped my older brother's graduation because Vicky broke her arm and needed both her parents with her. When our uncle passed away suddenly last year, we had to find out via social media and only knew we'd missed the funeral when my grandmother called my mom to question why we weren't there. That ruined my father's relationship with both his family and my older brothers, who haven't spoken to him since. Now here's something you have to know about my father. He loves to brag about how great of a stepfather he is and how much he's helped his stepchildren overcome the heartbreak they faced due to their deadbeat dad, even though he went from 50-50 custody of me to 2 weekends a month if I'm lucky. Here's where I might be the idiot. Last week I was invited to dinner with Dad and his family to celebrate a family friend's birthday. I suspect Dad only brought me because I'm friends with the daughter of said family friend. As usual, Dad and his family ignored me but pretended to care when someone would ask me questions. My stepmom brought up Christmas and how they had a great time at Disneyland. Dad then started bragging about how magical it was for Vicky and Darren to experience Disneyland for the first time. My friend then asked me if I liked Disneyland. I said I wasn't invited. I didn't know they went until I saw it on social media. It's how I mostly find out about their family trips. My dad and stepmom started making excuses, but I talked over them and said, "Yeah, my dad loves to brag about treating someone else's kids so well by neglecting his own. By the way, Dad, when did you last speak to one of your sons?" My dad then asked me what I was trying to make out. I said, "You're as big of a deadbeat as your stepkids, Dad. At least he has somewhat of an excuse. He has an addiction. But you just want to play super simp for your wife who's a witch by throwing away your own kids for hers." Cue my stepmother yelling at me. My friend's mom told her to calm down, making my stepmother red-faced. I then told everyone how my stepmom treated us like we were unwanted pets whenever we were there and how her kids loved to smugly rub it in how our dad chose them. My dad got up to leave and said we'd speak about this when we got home. My friend's mom said she didn't feel comfortable with them taking me, so she'd drop me off at my mom's and fill her in on everything that happened. My dad tried begging me to come with them, but my friend's dad told him to leave. Stepmom and step-siblings looked extremely embarrassed, so they didn't say anything and just hurried out to the car. Mom said I was justified, but my dad has been calling me non-stop. I won't answer. Stepmom came to our house tonight demanding I make it right because my dad has been locked up in his office crying since that night and my dad's side has been harassing her. Mom told her to tell it to the judge, then slammed the door in her face. I think I went overboard since social reputations mean a lot where we live. Crying over what? The fact that everyone knows he's a deadbeat? Not the idiot. It sucks like everyone left it to a kid to do the telling. If he comes to apologize, if you feel like it, listen to him. If you're not ready, just be straight about that. If he doesn't apologize, well, bandage off then. Regardless, don't hold on to the anger and hurt. Get your mom to get you in therapy. Parents can do more damage to us than we even realize. I'm 45 and still trying to work through crap. Everyone's the idiot here. He may have needed to hear the information, but hijacking someone's birthday is not the time or place. I don't care about social reputations, etc. You took someone's birthday dinner and made it about how your dad is a piece of work. Do that some other day when it isn't meant to celebrate someone specifically. Honestly, I doubt the dad would have even listened had it not happened in front of the family friends. Opie was finally able to speak her mind and the family and friends served as an excellent buffer and ensured that she was safe afterward. Imagine if they hadn't stepped in. I'd hate to think of what would have happened to OP if she'd gone home with her dad. Props to the family friend for stepping in. I'd go a bit of no contact for a while and see if he can self-reflect enough to apologise. If the truth can wreck a person's reputation, they mightn't have acted in said fashion. My female 40 boyfriend, 39, and I took a road trip to celebrate my career milestone. I cut it short after 4 days and I'm leaning towards ending our relationship. We planned it for 12 weeks. I covered the accommodations and he would cover meals and fuel. We were to leave by 6 a.m. on the first day, but he didn't show up until early in the afternoon after constantly telling me he was already out of his house. I had to call him because it doesn't take hours to get to my place. First, it was his family that needed something, and then he had to meet with a co-worker, etc. By the time he showed up, I was furious and frustrated. We stopped for gas and he went to the public restroom and said to just fill it up on my dime and he would take care of whatever else had to be purchased next time. He only covered one meal that day and complained when I wanted some snacks. On the third day, he wanted to meet with his ex-mother-in-law and father-in-law out of state and pick up his daughter, nearly adult female. His daughter lives in our town. I agreed as we talked about her spending most of the day with us. I was weirded out that she was carrying a backpack and found out while driving that he'd invited her to stay with us, in our bedroom, without even asking me. I tried not to make a scene, but I'm sure my face said it all. I told him privately that he needed to pay for a separate room so that she could stay with us. He blew up at me and accused me of being two-faced and faking loving his kid. He also accused me of agreeing to let her stay over, but that's not true. I would have arranged for a small suite or connecting rooms or something. Our room had no spare bed and we planned on having some romantic times. Also, I would not be comfortable squeezing myself in bed with them because he made a unilateral decision, and I didn't want to sleep on the floor because of privacy and because it felt like a put-down and it wasn't her fault. He said I was creating situations and trying to burn a hole in his pocket, but he rented an extra room. He came back about 30 minutes later to get his toothbrush and some belongings to go spend the night with his kid and slammed the door. I spent a horrible night, both hoping that he would come back to work things out and feeling both guilty and very disrespected. The next morning she was nice as usual, but he gave me the silent treatment. I tried to talk to him and he low-key barked at me that I ruined everything and that I killed all his attraction for me. I tried to control myself and avoided crying, but whenever I looked at him he looked angry and kind of going on a power trip. I asked if we could talk later and he buried his face in his phone. I drove his daughter back to her grandparents and kept driving back home. When he asked where I was going, I said the road trip was cancelled. I left him at his house and drove back for the rest of the trip, but I didn't enjoy it at all. He called me several times, but I didn't answer. I'm not even trying to punish him. I won't have a conversation with someone who said he's not attracted to me. I already put all of his stuff in a box so that I can return all of his personal belongings. I'm very confused. We've had arguments like any couple, but never like this. I'm rethinking and figuring out if not allowing his daughter in our bedroom was an insult or what. He has joint custody, so he sees her all the time. I'm also angry that maybe he wasn't planning on honouring our agreement since I had to push him and remind him to buy our meals and fill up the tank. Am I the idiot to break up with my boyfriend over a trip? Not the idiot. Girl, he turned your career milestone trip into the adventures of his ex-mother-in-law, daughter and budget gas fill-ups without even consulting you. He wanted a slumber party with his daughter in your shared bedroom, and now he's angry that you ruined his power trip. Sounds like he needs a co-pilot for his life's chaos, not a girlfriend. Also, let's not ignore that he contributed less to this trip than the free peanuts at a gas station. You deserve better than this man-child who treats joint custody like an excuse to ambush your plans. Pack his box, return it, and move on with your life. He was using you for a free trip for him and his daughter. Exactly, he doesn't give a darn about OP, he only cares about himself and his wants. And when she sets boundaries, he verbally attacks her with the "you're no longer attractive to me" comment. Seriously, what the heck? He's saying he despises OP and will belittle her and destroy her celebratory trip, all because of me, look how important I am. He probably can't afford a trip with his daughter and thinks this would make him look like the cool dad on OP's dime and time. What a loser. I would have left him at ex-mother-in-law's or dropped him off at the closest car rental agency. You were very nice bringing him home, but now get rid of him and let him create his own plans to spend time with his kid. It's obvious this was about him and only himself. How dare you challenge him with boundaries? Bah, he's a man. He's in charge, BS. He's definitely the idiot. I, 32 female, work in an office with my co-worker Ken, 40 male, who has a daughter, Esme, teen female. Ken and I are friendly, we've worked together for a few years now, and maybe I've been trying to open the door with something romantic over the last year. I was being very obvious, but it never went anywhere, and I thought that was because he was clueless. A few weeks ago, Esme came with Ken's dad to bring lunch to Ken. It was sweet, she was polite to everyone in the office, including me. They visited for about half an hour before I went to take my lunch. I always asked Ken if he'd like to join me for lunch, and I knew his visitors were leaving soon, so I did the same as always. He said no, which is no big deal. Sometimes he says no, sometimes he says yes. I asked if he was sure, and he said he was, and I asked, "Are you sure you're sure?" sort of teasingly. His daughter spoke up and said, He said he's sure, and things got a little awkward. No one said anything, but Ken and his dad looked shocked. I said I was just asking, and she told me to take a hint, and then Ken finally told her to stop. She said, quote, "It's not my fault she doesn't understand at her young age." I ended up crying. We didn't talk for a while and I steered clear. Last week I finally talked to him about it. He apologised and we talked a little more openly about stuff. Ken hadn't dated since his divorce 11 years ago and he didn't plan to. He said he'd been happily uninvolved. After some clarification, he meant 100% completely celibate. I didn't think people did that nowadays. Since then, and he didn't want that to change anytime soon, if ever. He told me he knew I was interested, but he didn't return the feelings. We were okay, it was an adult conversation and all went well. This is when things turned sour. I told him I understood, I apologised for pushing, and I asked him why his daughter treated me the way she did. He apologised but said she was protective of his choices, she knew he wasn't interested in anyone, and he'd expressed his discomfort around my flirting with his family. I told him that still wasn't validation for how she spoke to me and that he needed to teach her tact, as ultimately I'm someone being rejected by the person I had feelings for. She should have been polite and treated me with empathy. It was like his mood changed on the spot. He starts talking about how he prides himself on being a single father and raising a strong, intelligent daughter. I immediately apologised for offending him and said I felt she was brash. He ended the conversation and we hadn't spoken since. I've noticed some people giving me the cold shoulder. Finally, I asked a friend what was up and she told me that some people thought it was wrong of me to have said that to Ken. I left it alone and figured it would blow over, but I've had this nagging stomachache since then. Am I the idiot for telling my co-worker he should teach his daughter tact? You are the idiot. Your description of your actions was uncomfortable to read. He's clearly indicated that he wasn't interested in a romantic relationship with you, yet you were pushy about going to lunch when he was focusing on a family visit. Your comments about his daughter were icing on the cake relative to being rude and dismissive. I find it hilarious that OP, an adult woman in her 30s, needed to literally be told no by a freaking teen female girl to finally get how stupid she is making herself look, then demands empathy after having harassed her co-worker for months. Who freaking who, OP? Maybe if you acted like a respectful adult, you wouldn't need to be put in your place by a teenager. OP has some nerve lecturing anyone on having tact when she seems to be severely lacking it herself as well as social graces in general. She's made the work environment awkward and uncomfortable by being pushy with her unwanted attention and advances on Ken. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if the celibacy part was his way of trying to gently let OP down because he just isn't into her. The only person who messed up here is you. Stop making things awkward at work and do better. Update. I have accepted my ruling. I feel silly in hindsight that it took me so long to realise it. The thing with Ken is that he's very handsome and I don't think he realises how handsome he is, but I also don't think he cares at all. That was an attractive trait, but knowing that should have been my first hint that he wasn't interested in dating. Ken is a gentle, like Clark Kent kind of guy and everyone likes him, so when anyone hears anything bad about him, an angry mob forms. Another thing, his daughter is really polite, all things considered. She's shy and quiet, but she's very friendly. All the older ladies in the office adore her. She's one of those types. Ken corrected her when she commented along the lines of, "Esme, that was uncalled for, knock it off," or something, and she said sorry right away. I'd never heard her speak so confidently about something as she did when protecting her dad. I feel bad now as I'm looking back at it. I'm just not used to being rejected. Frankly, I've never been in a situation where a man I wanted didn't want me back. I figured he was either oblivious or awkward, but clearly he was just uninterested. Who knew? Everyone but me, apparently. Anyway, thank you everyone for putting me in my place and helping me see what was in front of my face. I have no idea how I'm going to fix it, but at least I can see now that I was definitely in the wrong. I'm a 19-year-old female in college living with 4 other roommates, and we all pretty much eat microwave food that goes in our freezer. We have a very small freezer, and for the first half of the year, it wasn't bad to fit stuff in it because our 4th roommate wasn't using it and we all shopped lightly. Recently, I've noticed that our freezer is literally packed to the point that it won't close. I've noticed that it's food that they all keep in there for weeks without eating. I have exactly one thing in there and it barely takes up any room. For perspective, said roommate just went out and bought food for the next 2 weeks and took up so much space. I texted the group chat and asked them to reorganise and consider other people's space when shopping for groceries or for them to eat them within the week. My roommate said, I'll eat half of my stuff in the next week, and then brushed off my request and said that it'd be hard to fit stuff no matter what because it's a small space for 4 people. That felt very dismissive, and it felt like she was refusing to come up with a solution that was fair to everyone. So I texted back and asked if she would shop for groceries for the next week instead of 2 weeks from now on. She sent back a pretty angry sounding text saying that she shops when she wants to and doesn't feel like going to the store every week. I've no idea what to do. I really want space for the freezer. I talked to my pops about this and he said, either you buy fresh food or put your foot down with them because they're selfish. I will try to buy fresh food to put elsewhere, but it's hard for me to eat them before they expire so quickly. Being a college student, I really just want quick, easy meals. Did I push it too far? Am I the idiot? You are the idiot. To be honest, it sounds like the issue is not that they're buying too much, but rather that you don't have enough freezer space. 2 weeks is a normal time for buying groceries, especially stocking up on frozen goods. I had that problem in college. I just found a cheap and small mini deep freezer and put all my stuff in it. You should search Facebook Marketplace for one. Why should you be expected to buy your own mini fridge or freezer? Stand up to the fridge hog after you've discussed the situation with the other roomies, just so you can present a united front. She gets a quarter of the space and she can do with it what she wants. Divide that freezer up into equal units and tell her to stay in her space. Use a level marker or a bit of painter's tape with names written on it. Anything in yours, you put in the trash starting next week. What, is she going to argue against fair distribution of space? Not the idiot. If she wants more space, she can buy her own freezer for the additional stuff that won't fit in her share of the main one.